Welcome to Keep Moving Forward, the Success Formula podcast. I'm your host, Gordon Des. In each episode, we dive deep into the mindset, the struggles, and the breakthroughs that shape a meaningful life. I'll be sharing the raw, unfiltered stories of my own journey, from my new inspirational memoir, and sitting down with special guests from my past and current life, and ones who've also faced their own turning points. This isn't just about success by theory. It's about building a life of purpose, resilience, and relentless forward motion. Because no matter where you are, no matter what you're facing, the formula is simple. Keep learning, keep growing, keep moving forward. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm excited to bring you another episode. My special guest today, Kevyn Oyhenart. I worked with him back in Earl's Restaurants when we opened up the Lansdowne location in Richmond, BC. I've known him for quite some time after that. He was in one of my wedding parties. So, hey, Kevyn, welcome to the show, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Des. I'm excited to be here.
It's good to see you, man. It's been a long time since I've seen you in person. Yeah, you look great, man.
Thanks. You mentioned Earl's Lansdowne. That's 1996, for those that don't know when Earl's opened up in Lansdowne. 1996. That's a long time.
Long time ago. And actually, I was talking with, you remember Dean Jeffries?
Yeah, I do.
He was telling me that they're going to be arranging a big reunion of all the people that opened up Earl's Lansdowne. So I don't know when it's going to happen exactly, but
James Drummond, Colin Buckingham.
Yeah.
There's so many names.
James Drummond. I couldn't remember his first name for some reason, James Drummond. And when I left there, and I have the story in a book as well, I couldn't remember his first name, and I put that in there. I just call him Mr. Drummond. And I even put in the book, I can't remember his first name. It just escapes me. But when I left and I gave my notice, because I was going to move on from Earl's to the Sheraton Guildford Hotel, because I wanted to expand my culinary ability, because obviously with Earl's, it's just a set menu, right? You just got to make what they have in the menu, so every location is the same. So you can't really do anything creative, right? And I was going through some frustration at the time. I'm not sure if you saw any of that at all, but when I was night coach there, and we had these meetings, right? So we had the meetings prior to the shift. You know, they have the head person on the serving side, the head person from the kitchen, and then we would meet with management, so Colin and James, and just to go over the night before how it went, how we can improve, stuff like that. I was really feeling like every single time I opened my mouth, I was being shot down. I was coming across, in their opinion, as defensive, and they would just shoot me down. Oh, you're being too defensive. Oh, you're being too sensitive. And I'm just trying to advocate for my team, man. Like, that's all I'm trying to do. And I just felt like I was just not being heard. So that's when I started looking for employment somewhere else. And that's when I decided, no, I got to move on with my culinary career. I'm going to go to the Sheraton Guildford Hotel. And they were really pissed off when I gave them my notice. I gave them 2 weeks, and they were really mad. And I thought, well, fuck you, man. You should have treated me better when I was there. You should have listened to me. I'm trying to advocate for my team. And every time I'm being shot down. So, like, you obviously don't care about what I think. And James Drummond walked up to me and he says, that's just like you, isn't it? I said, what? He says, just like your failed marriage, you just quit. And I'm like, fuck you, man. You know nothing about me. Like, how dare you even say that to me, right? He knows nothing about my failed marriage. He knows nothing about me. That really put the nail in the coffin. It's like, I'm glad I'm leaving. I had enough. That was it. But we had some good times there at Earl's Lansdowne, didn't we?
We did. We had, I can remember when you were baking and I was doing like line coach or my entry level when I started off as, when Colin trained me as veg prep, I think it was back then.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like I totally remember that. That was fun times. That industry though, like it is such a young person's industry. And you eat it up, you drink the Kool-Aid, for lack of a better analogy, right? And you love it and it sucks you in. And then all of a sudden, you know what? It just spits you out. The minute you start pushing back a little bit and try to fight for different, like it'll spit you right back out. For me, you know, I was with Earl's for just over 10 years. And then I moved on to Cara and a couple other different things we can get into a little bit later. But the next thing you know, you're 28 and you're like, oh, what am I going to do with my life now? I was a dishwasher when I first started, but now I've invested all this time and effort and I got absolutely nothing out of it, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, good training. And the great thing about Earl's is they only hire dynamic people like us. Oh, obviously we wouldn't be on the staff and lasted that long if we weren't. To work with others, people like that, it was just great experience. And the training there was second to none. And, you know, you really became efficient. Remember how they always, oh, you're making a second trip to the cooler. Hurry. That's cost you 10 seconds. That was great. So yeah, we knew each other from then. I left and I'm getting married. So you never met my first wife, Susie. Then ever since I was with Earl's, because it was Earl's in Abbotsford before I went to Lansdowne, I was with Tessie In the book, I mentioned her, obviously, and I also mentioned that you're in my wedding party for that. There's actually a picture on page 274 of the book. There's a picture of you and me, Rob Siddon, and my friend Dave. We're all in our tuxedos, just the day of the wedding, and we're just relaxing at the hotel on the balcony with our beers. And you're trying to give me a kiss in that photo. You remember that photo?
I vaguely remember it.
Yeah.
That's awesome though.
So I'll post it up here for those of you watching the video podcast. But speaking of pictures of you, I didn't include this other one in the book because I didn't think it was fair without getting your permission first. But Tessie had a cousin, Kyla, who had a big crush on you, her young cousin. You remember Kyla, right?
I do remember Kyla.
Yeah. And every time she looked at you, man, her eyes sparkled and stuff. And you were like, the cat's me out of her. And so remember what we did, eh? We came up with the idea of you pose with your chef's jacket open and leaning on the cooler or whatever and looking all sexy and stuff. And I got you to sign that for her. We gave it to her. And if you're okay with me posting that on my video podcast, I'd like to share that with my listeners as well.
For sure. I'm an open book. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. You're a good sport. I really looked up to you in those days. You brought something to my life that made me less regimented. You were just one of those easygoing kind of guys. I mean, sure, we had our times where we got frustrated or things didn't go right or whatever, but you were more of a type of guy that you just let things slide off your back. It seemed to me anyway. I mean, obviously, you know yourself better than I do, but that's the impression that you gave to me. You're just easygoing, lighthearted, always quick with a joke or a smile, and things just didn't seem to bother you. How does that represent how you are, how you really feel about yourself?
I would say that my dad impressed upon me when I was younger that there's only certain things in your life that you can control. And if you control those, then you're going to be better off than if you let things just happen. So what can you control? Well, when you wake up in the morning, you control how you feel, how you attack that day, right? Whether you're tired and you let that get to you, or whether you just come into it with a smile and do the best you can with what you have, that energy that you have that day, right? And so I always tried to control what I can control. And then the rest of things are just going to happen and you have to be able to react to them and make the most of it, right? And like when I first said to you, when I just saw you this morning, it's like, why do we look so old, Desi? Because it's like, you know what? Like, I'm 48 now, and not that I'm going downhill, but I'm not 18 anymore. I don't recover the same way I used to, right? So like, you just have to make adjustments, and you control what you control. And I try to do the same thing with my kids, and they don't have that lesson down pat yet. They still react in different things, but I think they're starting to learn. And for me, like the fact that you said that you looked up to me, and I'm like, wow, like I'm thinking back then, like you're 10 years older than me, but I'm like I looked up to you because I'm like, you know what? Like here's this guy in here busting his ass, working his ass off, and like
the old guy.
Like you had that infectious energy too. And I'm like, you know what? Like we didn't really talk about this, right? But like you feed off each other, right? And you get through those. Like you carried me through moments that I needed it, and maybe I carried you through moments, and
you did.
That's what a good team does, right? And
absolutely,
we're just a good team.
That's right. You nailed it on the head there. It's perfect because having that atmosphere of dynamic people, and you're right, we feed off each other, and that's what really makes a good team. And yeah, that's nice to hear that. Thank you. So in the book, I mentioned this, and this is, I don't know, it's a very personal thing. When I decided to write this memoir, I thought I'm either putting it all out there and doing this, or I'm not. And I decided, well, I'm just going to put it all out there. And somebody asked me the other day, what was the purpose? Like, what do you hope to gain by doing this? I said, well, you know what? It's to help people. What it boils down to, and this is where the podcast come through and it makes some great conversation, and things come up just naturally in conversation where you can share with people, and hopefully through my mistakes and through my lessons learned that, we can help other people live a better life. And so we were there dressed in our tuxedos and everything else. And my relationship with Tessie wasn't fantastic. I was still madly in love with her, and she was younger than me. So she was around your age, right? Because she's almost 10 years younger than I am. There was a few things, and I mentioned these in the book, there's a few things leading up to the wedding. And it's like, I don't know if she's still in love with me or not. And so we had that big party the night before the wedding. It was up at one of her relatives' house. And there was this big party and stuff. And Tessie was, if you remember her, she loved attention, right? And what it boiled down to, I found out in hindsight, looking back, that I think she was more in love with being the bride-to-be than being married to me. And she was just soaking it all in. She just loved the attention. And hey, this big party is for her. And well, it's for us, but the bride's special day, it's her day and all that. And all the plans leading up to it, picking out her dress and everything else. She just loved that whole thing. And so that evening, I was feeling a bit nostalgic. And I was thinking back from when we first met and, how all these years have transformed us into becoming a married couple the next day. And I pulled her aside. Let's just go for a little walk. Let's go for a little walk, you and I. And I was, sort of pouring my heart out to her and reminiscing and how far we've come and all that. And in my opinion, I think that would be like a woman looking at her man saying, wow, he's just so romantic. Like, wow, to think about this and take a moment out of our busy evening to really reflect on us. But I didn't get the same vibes in return. She barely said anything. She barely acknowledged anything I said. She kept glancing back at the party like I was interrupting her, and all she wanted to do was get back to the party. And it hit me at that point. She doesn't love me anymore. So I was faced with the decision. Here I am. We're all, celebrating and stuff like that. We're celebrating the union of us. It's going to happen the next day. Everything was planned. I mean, it was the next day, the wedding, right? So everything was planned, from the photographer to the big Scottish dancers and the big regalia we come out of the church and all this. The church was booked, and, the caterer, everything was booked. And so I was thinking to myself, and it really hit me, she doesn't love me anymore. Like, what I was going to do. So I could either go ahead with it, right? Because, I mean, maybe it's just, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I'm getting this wrong vibe from her, but there was all these things leading up to that day as well. I could just go ahead and just marry her anyway, because everything's set, or I could just walk away. And I really thought about that night, especially on the drive home. And I thought, if I walk away, I'm going to be the bad person, because there's no proof that she didn't love me. She's not going to admit at that point. She's loving all the tension. And if I walk away and I don't show up, sort of, leave her at the altar, as they say, right? I'm definitely going to be the bad person. And she's going to blame everything on me. And she's going to get more attention from that. And I don't think she's ever admit that the feelings I had, she never was the person to really open up to me in, personal discussions about feelings and stuff like that anyway. So I just decided, I'm just going to go ahead. Between you, me, and Rob and Dave, when we were decorating the car the next morning at the hotel, before we got in our tuxedos and all that, I didn't let on to you guys because, I was like, here I'm going to my second marriage. And, being that tough guy, the man's man, I wanted my friends to think I had it all figured out,
Well, you had that motorbike back then.
No, I didn't have it then.
No. Didn't you have it then? Oh, okay.
No,
I just remember you classic Des motorbike, right? That's
yeah. That's now, guy, right? That's now, right? Yeah, I get my Harley now, but yeah, I'm a complete biker now. I was a lot older than you guys. Well, Dave and I were the same, but I was a lot older than you and Rob. I just wanted you to look up to me and just think that, hey, this guy's got to figure out. He's got this young, attractive fiance. They're about to be married. And so obviously I went through with it, and we got married the next day. And we even had an argument afterwards. It was being in the wedding car. So I'm not sure if you were in the wedding car or not. I think it might have been just Dave and her and our maid of honor and me and Tessie in the back seat. But we had this argument and stuff like that. And I said, here we are on our wedding day. This is supposed to be the happiest day of our lives, and we're arguing. I can't even remember what it was about. After that, everything just slowly started going downhill. Obviously, it was the wrong choice. But again, things happen for a reason. And if I would have left her at the altar, I don't know, I would have been marked as the bad person and all that, and not her. So it was a real tough time for me. Did you pick up on any of that happening in my life, or did I put on a good charade?
No, I think, first off, impossible decision either way, right? Like, you're not...
Absolutely.
The old catch-22, damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? You either go through with it and hope for the best, or you walk away and then now you're portrayed as a bad guy, or whatever else falls in place, right? So impossible decision to make in that short time frame. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, because it's not easy too, right? The turmoil, the stress, the everything. But no, to answer your question, you said you wanted to look like you were all together. You did. And it's funny, like, you say that, but like, we don't know. When we look at other people and like, oh, he's got such a perfect life. He looks, he's got everything together. Like, everything must be turning up roses for him. He's got $3 million in the bank account. He's got 2 kids that are healthy. Like, we don't know what's going on underneath. No. We don't know what goes on behind closed doors. And we judge and we look and the grass is always greener on the other side. And you know what? A lot of times it's really not. They're going through just as much stuff. They're struggling. They're barely putting food on the table. Like, there's so many things that we just don't know. And For me to
Absolutely.
answer that question for you, yeah, like what you said there and what you wanted to portray, that's what came off. Like it looked, like you looked like the happy couple. You looked like you were
Right.
happy to be married. You looked like I don't recall a single thing about that time where
Wow.
I ever questioned your guys' relationship or why you were together, right?
Right. Right. Well, that's good. I had a good charade, and I loved her. I really did. So in the book, I talk about what happened afterwards and stuff, and how it slowly just went sideways. And there was a big moment that happened that you read in the book that really shocked me. And this just sort of goes to her level of maturity based on mine. She was married to me, but had a crush on a guy at her work, and I actually found a letter that she admitted it in, and I said that, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? And it all clued in. There was, for a few weeks prior to that, she conveniently forgot her wedding ring on the side of the sink in the bathroom and stuff like that. And I thought, like, how old are you? Like, if you have a problem in a relationship, just talk to me. And that's a big struggle I had. She just wouldn't open up. Like, we just hard for her to open up and talk about her feelings, right? And so finally, she just left after we had a big discussion about it and stuff like that. And it took a little bit of time after I found the letter. She said, "No, I love you. We're gonna make it work and stuff." And I could just tell she was unhappy. And we drifted apart. And she left. And the day she left, it was the day before Valentine's Day of the year 2000. And I remember the next day, I took the day off work so I could. I'm just a very matter of fact kind of guy. Things need to be done, right? Regardless of whatever the situation is. And I had to close her joint account. I had to take her name off the lease. I had to do all this stuff. So I took the day off work the next day just to do all that. And every place I went into, oh, happy Valentine's Day. I
Oh
just
man,
lost my sweetheart.
the
And
worst,
you,
the
you know what?
worst.
Yeah. And even though we went through all that, I was still in love with her. It broke me, man. It broke me. There was nights of me just sitting there crying, and I felt old at that time. I felt old. I mean, that was in the year 2000, so I would have been 33, and I felt washed up. I felt washed up. Here I was, two marriages, two divorces, well, one divorce leading into another, and I just felt like the best of my life is behind me. At 33, I felt that. That's how down I was, right? That wasn't even the darkest time of my life. The darkest time of my life is when I had to declare bankruptcy prior to that. So her and I had just met, and this is before I even started at Earl's. And my divorce happened from my first wife, lost my kids, lost my wife. I knew that we would have to close the business. I'd be declaring bankruptcy. There was no future. My mom at the point had disowned me because of the whole breakup thing and wanted me to get back together. And I almost ended it all. So I have a chapter called My Darkest Hour. And it's funny when you take yourself back there, that was the hardest chapter to write, because I really wanted to capture in every single paragraph and every single chapter of the book, I really wanted to capture the feelings I had and then what was happening around me and stuff. So it was a really hard process to write the whole book, but that chapter was the hardest. And after you sit there and you take yourself back in your mind and you try and capture those words to really help portray what was happening to somebody that wasn't there. And your brain is a funny thing because it takes you back there. It feels like it's happened all over again. And I was like 40 days to finish the book of 8 to 12 hours of writing. And I had had the book like going for years prior to that, but I just wanted to get it done and out. And so many days I'd walk out of my office and be like, man, I just feel so down. And I had to remind myself, hey, I have a beautiful, beautiful wife. I have great kids, and that's not my life now. That was before, and here I am now. And yeah, so it's a good read. I really highly recommend. If you haven't got a copy of it yet, Kev, and pick it up. And the listeners out there too, yeah, anything you can do to help you in life, man, just do that, right?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, buddy. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Everybody has their dark moments, but I think that's what shapes us. That's what shapes our character. That's what makes us resilient in the future. Like we always feel like there's no way out
yeah,
at that particular time. And then because we lose perspective, we just lose perspective on life and all
yes,
the good things going
yeah,
for us. And I'm glad that you made it through that and that we're here today talking
yeah,
about it. Like it can't be
yeah,
easy sharing that either, buddy. It can't be
yeah.
easy.
No, it's not. It's really hard, but Yeah, I'm thankful every single day, man, that I didn't do that. Because man, here I am 58. I think still at 58, I still got so much more life left. And there I was thinking at one point, 33 when Tessie left me, that I was thinking my life's over. I'm washed up. I got nothing left. Oh, to be 33 again, man, that'd be so good. But
Wouldn't
yeah, let's talk about something here, man. I want to pick your brain a little bit. Enough about me. I want you to share a time in your life where you faced adversity and how you overcame that, how you pushed through, how you just kept moving forward.
I I've had a few. I've had a few. I mean, much, like we share a lot of similarities and a lot of uh parallel things in our life, I think. I had my first wife that I had three, lovely kids with. We ended after 14 or 15 years together. We were married
Wow.
for 11 of those.
Yeah.
That was hard. You talk about your lowest point in your life, and I think the hardest conversation I've ever had in my life was after not telling her that we shouldn't be together because we were just toxic at that point, but sitting my three children down who were, this is back in 2015. So, like yeah, like sitting them down, I can still put myself back in that place and telling them that, listen, daddy's leaving and he's not coming. Well, what do you mean daddy's leaving? Well, mommy and I aren't going to be together anymore. Daddy's moving out. Well, what do we do? We'll fix it. We'll do
Mhm.
whatever we have to. And it's like, oh
Oh
my
man.
God, it still shatters my heart to this day. I can still remember the looks on their faces, the tears, the screaming, the holding me
Wow.
back from going down this, like, yeah, I can still remember that. But
Yeah.
um, I think the time I'd like to share with you and all your listeners and whatnot would be before. It would have been back in 2016. I got let go from a job.
Okay.
I was working with Montana's as a general manager at the time, and
Wow.
I was working with a franchisee that held four different restaurants. Been in the South Surrey restaurant. I think I was there for just over a year, and they wanted to move me up, and they talked about making me like a regional manager for them and helping them out in different things. And I was doing quite well, and I got moved to this new store. And when I got moved to this new store, I got paired with this lady, and I'm not going to mention her name, but she had ambitions for my job, which is great. That's what you want for your managers. You want someone to push you so that they
Yeah.
can get your job. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't realize to the extent of everything that she would play as dirty as she did. And
Wow.
she painted a portfolio wrongfully. Like I was above board. I didn't do anything wrong. But she painted a picture to them that I was toxic, that I was terrible, and they bought it. They bought it. And I got called in on a Monday and I'm like, oh, what's going on? I got to go to a different store. I'm like, okay, let's go in. I go there and they're like, all three franchisees are sitting there. And I'm like, what's going on, guys? And I'm like, my heart sunk the minute I walked out on that patio. And I'm like, what's
You
going
do.
on? And they're like, can you have a seat? And I'm like, do I want to have a seat? They're like, just have a seat. We're gonna talk. I'm like, okay. And this
Wow.
has never happened before, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, the only time I'd ever had all three franchisees in the room was when I got hired. And they're like, okay, well, long story short, we're gonna let you go. I'm like, sorry, pardon? What? Yeah, we're gonna let you go. Do you have your keys on you? I'm like, I do, but what's going on? They're like, well, we got reason to believe that you're doing some underhanded things and you're milking your hours, you're leaving early, you're coming late, things like that. And we just don't want that and I'm like, okay. And I said, who told you that? They're, oh, well, we're not going to, we don't want to disclose any. I'm like, okay. I mean, you guys have cameras. You can go back to them if you want. And
Yeah.
they're like, no. So we sat there and I was just staring at one of them, just staring. We sat there probably for about 2 minutes in silence. And they're like, do you have anything you want to know? And I'm like, no. They're like, really? You don't want to ask any questions? I'm like, nope. And they're like, okay. And inside, I'm just dying, right? I'm an
Yeah.
emotional person.
Yeah. You are.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yeah.
I work hard for everything I've done in my life. I've worked hard. And at that moment, I'm like, I'm dying inside. I want to cry. I want to throw. I just no control. But I had to
Yeah.
maintain control on the outside. And so
Right.
they're like, okay. And I'm like, so I put my keys down on the table and I walked out. And that was it. And I didn't know how I was going to get my last paycheck, how anything was going to move forward, but I just left. I wanted to leave on,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to cause a scene, and I left,
Yeah.
right? I think it was a Jerry Maguire where they sit him down and they fire him in a restaurant because
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
they sit him down and they take him to a restaurant because it's crowded and he can't make a big scene, right? Same thing with me, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to make a big scene. So anyways, I
Yeah.
left on my own terms, and I remember I drove, and it's the first time I've ever been let go in my life. I drove and I parked in a quiet spot, and I think I bawled and cried because I didn't know how to go home and tell my girlfriend at the time,
Yeah.
because it was after I left Eileen and the kids, and now I was with somebody else. I didn't know how to tell her that, because I didn't know what the future was going to be. And
Yeah.
as a man, like, I was raised very old fashioned, and like, so, you're a provider, you're the one that maintains control in every situation and let everybody else fall to pieces, but you maintain that standard. And
Yeah.
I remember, I'm like, I didn't know how to go home. And like, I sat there for a couple hours, and I'm like, I'm crying, and then I'm not crying. I'm like, and then I'm up. I'm like, oh, well, I got a plan. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do. Like, what am I going to fall back on? And I'd
Wow.
always been in the restaurant industry. I never had any secondary education. I never had any of that stuff. And like, so I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I'm like, I remember going home, and she could see that I'd been crying, and she goes, what's wrong? And I'm like, I got let go today. And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah, they let me go. And she worked for the same company. That's how we'd actually met.
Oh, wow.
And she's like, they let you go? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, oh my God. She was panicking and didn't. And needless to say, I took a couple weeks, but I didn't know what to do. And so I kind of reinvented myself. What was I good at? Well, you know what? I was good with my hands and my tools. So through one of my contacts, one of the girls that I hired, her husband worked as a cider. And I'm like, you know what? So I went and worked for him. So
Okay.
I went back and I did stuff that I like, finishing carpentry, which I was always really good with tools and different things. So
Right.
I
Right.
went back, and I'm like, I was working for him, and I was making, $25 an hour, and I was up at 5 a.m. to drive to North Van, right? To work for 8 hours and then drive
Yeah.
home in traffic. So you're spending 3 hours in traffic,
Yeah.
driving to do, to work grunge work.
Yeah.
And
Hard work.
I did that just to
Yeah.
pay bills. Through all that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that you can be pushed down, but you don't have to give up. Like, you can keep pushing through. And like, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't the best thing for me. It wasn't a job I was going to do the rest of my life, but it paid the bills, and it bought me time to figure out my next
Right.
avenue of approach.
Right.
And I did that for just over 4 years. And I parlayed
Wow.
that into a job I worked for Softball City as their restaurant manager or banquet manager or whatever you want to call it. I ran a bar. I had to learn a ton about different sides of because I'd always been, I've always been a chef, and then, working on the other side of things as a general manager, and then a bar manager, you got to learn about the liquor license. You got to learn about all that stuff. I had to sort of, to reinvent myself. And
Sort of interrupt,
to
but
be
how
honest,
old were you at this point when you were going through all these and reinventing yourself?
well, 2016 would have put me at what, 39?
Okay.
Yeah, 39 years old. And so, like,
Wow.
you're fired at 39. Like,
Uh,
that doesn't happen, right? Like,
yeah.
I got 3 kids, right? And what I
Yeah.
didn't know at the
Yeah.
time was that Megan was pregnant with Sophie, my fourth. But I didn't know that at the time. She didn't know either, right? We'd
Yeah.
find out a month and a half later. But so,
Wow.
we thought it was just the two of us, and we'll be fine. She can pay bills or whatever for the time being. And I had a severance package coming from that. But yeah, like, I had to swallow my pride. I had to admit to my family that I've been like, that's not an easy thing for a proud person
No.
to do.
No.
And so I learned a lot about myself. Since then I got let go from Softball City too, because again, another girl that anyways, another long story, but like, uh, I've had some rough moments in life, but like that,
Wow.
that particular time in my life taught me that I can get through anything, I just got to take a deep breath and say, okay, you know what can I control in this situation? Oh, I can get a job. Okay. And this is my end job? No, but it's going to pay the bills. It's going to meet the requirements I need for right now. And then now I can look forward and try to find out what I'm going to do. And, in my life, I've been a head chef. I've been a general manager. I've been a bar manager. I've been a mortgage broker. I've had my life license. I worked with my dad for 10 years as a mortgage broker with my brother too, right? And
Wow.
that's another part of my life that I value. I learned so many things from my dad, and I'd still be doing that, Des, but my
Yeah.
dad passed away in 2010, and
Oh, sorry, man.
losing him again, that's another lesson that you learn a lot about yourself. That how many things did you rely on for your dad for, right? Like, it's crazy until
Yeah.
you lose
Yeah.
that parent. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, because my dad wasn't around to talk to. I had to do it all on my own. I'm proud of the person that came out of that, because it's made
Yeah.
me who I am today, that I can roll with the punches and get through that downtime and then come out better on the other side because of that.
You've proven that thing to yourself, right? By have
100%.
being subject to all that and coming through on the other end, shining, right? So, and I quote this in the book too. I always tell people, and I tell this to my children too, that there are no mistakes in life. There's only lessons learned. We're only human. You just got to try things. And I overheard you saying that prior to we started. You were saying, like, you just got to try things. And you were saying that's the kind of guy that Des is. You just got to try things. And hey, if it works, great. If it doesn't, hey, you learn something from it. And that's just it. I don't think there are any mistakes in life. And like you said, what we go through really shapes us as to who we are in the end,
100%.
Yeah. So you're 10 years younger than I am, and you lost your dad in 2010. I lost mine in 2021. How old was your dad? You want to talk about that, or?
Yeah, you know what? Like, time doesn't diminish the love or the feelings you had, or any of the hurt that comes out of that, but it allows you to, and I'm getting a little emotional here, but that's fine. It allows you to compartmentalize it and deal with it, right? You still miss them every day, but you can talk about it now. It's not that super raw emotion anymore. The emotion's still there, but you learn to sort of deal with it, right? And so my dad was 56 when he passed
Wow.
away. And
I'm
it
sorry,
was
man.
no, it happens, but like it happened so quick. My dad was around for the birth of my three children.
Mm,
So he saw all three of his grandchildren. He didn't see the fourth, but she's been to his graveside a couple times with me to talk to him and went on.
yeah,
But
that's
we
nice.
were on my brother's stag, my youngest brother. We were on a stag in Las Vegas. All of us were there. My uncles, my cousins, had a great time. A few too many drinks, a few too many stories that came out of that, but fun nonetheless. And
Yeah.
dad was part of that. But dad always got sick everywhere we went. In a hotel, for some reason, always got sick, whether it was the air conditioning or whatnot. So he got
Okay.
sick. Long story short, 3 weeks later, he was gone. Like 3 weeks later,
Wow.
gone. He caught a cold, and then it turned into a double pneumonia, to the point where 10 days after we'd come back, we were living in Chilliwack at the time. I come in from Chilliwack because we were all working as mortgage brokers. And
Yeah.
I go to my brother. I'm like, Dad's struggling right now. Like, I've never seen panic on my dad's face before, ever, in all my time. Never seen
Yeah.
panic. And I saw
Yeah.
panic. He was sitting on the couch, on the edge of the couch, couldn't breathe. And there was panic in his eyes. And I'm like, I'd never seen
Wow.
that before. And that's unnerving. That's when you know
Yeah.
something's wrong. So I said to Chad, I said, tomorrow, if dad's not any better or showing it, like, you need to take him to the hospital. Can you promise me that? He goes, yeah. Still dad, still trying to work through this, still upstairs in the office, working through it, can't breathe, still working, right? That's how
Wow.
stoic he was and how much of a committed to the cause he was. Next day, Chad had taken him to the hospital. He's in the hospital. They give him some air. It's sort of helping him a little bit, but he's not getting any better. Then the next thing you know, now we're 2 weeks in, we get to the Friday, and they're like, we need to get this under control. So they wanted to sedate him, intubate him, and cure it so that he could breathe properly and then allow his body to heal, because the panic and what isn't allowing him to heal. So
Right.
they put him under, and he just never came back. He ended up, the following Friday, he ended up having a stroke, like a massive, he
Yeah.
put it this way, Des, I mean, he was a ticking time bomb anyway. That's what
Yeah.
the Dr. Haljan, he was one of the best trauma doctors in the Lower Mainland. He was on my dad's case at the time, and he was the one handling him. He said dad was a ticking time bomb. Like, he smoked his whole life. He did a lot of things that were kind of bad. And so he was a ticking time bomb. Needless to say, he had a stroke, and I guess a blood clot broke off from his heart, ended up in his brain. He had the whole right side of his brain. Like, we saw the autopsy and we saw the MRI scan of his brain, and we saw, he clicks through with the little mouse, and then it goes a little black dot, and then all of a sudden it's 4 pixels, and then it's 60, and then next thing you know, within like 5 things, the whole right side of his brain was dark gray. And he's like, that's what we call dead. Dad was still hooked up to life support at this time. And I'll never forget my mom's reaction, or the rest of my family. And I remember Chad and I looking at each other, and we had to be the sort of strong ones, because everyone else was like weak at that moment. And we already knew that when Dr. Haljan called us in on Sunday to go over, and he started off and he said, let's start from the beginning. And the minute he said that, I knew that dad was gone. And
Wow.
he proceeded to tell us everything. And then he said, you guys don't choose whether you pull the plug or not. That's up to us. And we're going to do that. But we want to give you guys time to say goodbye and bring everybody in that you need to. And so we did. And Chad and I were the only ones that stayed with dad to the very end. And I remember they took all the tubes out, they unplugged them. And the dying part of things is kind of ugly at that stage, right? It's agonal breathing where they're all over the place. And it's just, we held dad's hand and we told him it was time to go. I'll never forget that. I'm proud that we went through that together, because we needed to, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't
No.
easy at all, but I'm happy that I was there for the last little bit with my dad. So I got to say goodbye.
That's good. Yeah. Oh, Kevin, my heart goes out to you, brother. Yeah, it's a tough thing. I won't tell you the whole story about my dad, but I was able to be with him when he passed too, and he was in the hospital and labored breathing, and he was bleeding from his mouth and his nose and stuff. And the nurse tried to prepare me for the kind of state he was in before I went to the room, and nothing can prepare you for that. She told me that he can't respond to you, but he can hear you. So if there's anything you need to say, go ahead and say it. And I did. And it was just a matter of time before he was gone. But I was there with my mom. The two of us were there when he passed. And I just wanted to be close to him. Like, he didn't have a shirt on. So I put my hand on his chest. I wanted to feel his heart. And as we were sitting there, I was holding my mom's hand. On the other hand, I had my hand on his chest, and I couldn't help but watching the vein in his neck. I could see his pulse, and his breathing started to go slower and slower. And I couldn't take my eyes off that vein in his neck. And the other nurse was, holding his other hand and, looking for his pulse and stuff like that. And I could see the pulse in his vein and just going slower until it just stopped. And it was just, a few seconds after that, the nurse said, she's gone. My mom broke down, and yeah. But I'm glad I was there for, not only for me and being able to say goodbye, but be there for my mom as well. And yeah, so I hear you, brother. It's something that, you're grateful that you go through, and it makes you stronger, but it's tough, man.
It is.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been through a lot, man. And hey, my hat's off to you for coming on here today and sharing and stuff. But just one last thing before we end this, I want to know if you can offer my listeners any advice on being resilient in life, like how to, as I said right at the very beginning, you're the type of guy that the impression you left on me when you were younger and we're working together roles, that things just slid off your back. Like, you seem very resilient. What's your piece of advice now that you're older and experienced and still looking good, I must say?
Thanks, buddy. You too.
Yeah, you bet, man. Thank you. What would you say to them? What's your advice?
I'm just going to circle back to kind of what we started with, the compliment you paid me, and I can go back to my dad. And you can only control so many things in your life. Stuff is going to happen and it's out of your control, but you can control your attitude when you wake up in the morning. If you wake up and you're like, I'm going to attack this day as best I can, and whatever happens, then you're going to be better off than if you don't. So I would say to all your listeners, I know it sounds super simple, but honestly, it's the best piece of advice I could offer anybody is control what you can control. And then the rest of it's just going to happen, and you just have to deal with it. So
all right,
control what you can. And then you'll be way better off.
Yeah. Control what you can and accept what you can't.
100%.
Yeah. Well said, my friend. We got to get together, brother. It's been way too long. You're looking great. And it's just great to see you, brother. And we need to go for a beer or something, man. That brings us to an end of this episode. And I just want to take a moment to say a heartfelt thank you to my guest, Kevyn, for joining us today. Your insight and your story and your energy have been truly amazing. And your story is very inspiring. And it's conversations like this that remind us why we do what we do, and to connect, to grow, and to light the way for others. So thank you again, Kevyn. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Hey,
anytime. It's great. And to everyone tuning in, hey, thanks for being a part of this journey. If today's episode moved you, inspired you, it made you just think a little bit deeper, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. And goodbye for now.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Keep Moving Forward, the Success Formula podcast. If today's conversation moved you, imagine what over 480 pages of truth, resilience, and real-life strategies could do. My brand new memoir, Keep Moving Forward, the Success Formula, is part story, part survival guide, and it's written for you. Grab your copy today on Amazon or wherever you buy your books, and let's keep walking this journey together. I'm Gordon Des. Thanks for listening. Thanks for believing. And as always, keep moving forward. See you on the next episode.